Hey Denver, Chris Lopez here, and today we're going to talk about new builds. You've heard us talk about new builds a lot more last few months with our deal analyses and talking with clients, and we were buying new builds for house hacks and also some Airbnbs and medium-term rentals. So new builds are different than traditional resale properties. So I got one of our experts on the podcast, Lauren Valinoti. Lauren, welcome.
Hey, thank you. Excited to talk about this topic.
I know. So this is something that we've been doing a lot the last really 6-7 months as the pandemic has, driven inventory off the cliff. Mm-hmm. And you've done a lot of new builds recently, and it's very different than traditional, properties. And it all comes down to pros and cons. Mm-hmm. Everything is pros and cons, and you've done a great job of outlining pros and cons for here. So where do you start discussion with clients on, hey, I want to invest, I'm open to new builds. Where do you start the education?
Yeah, so pretty much when you are looking in the multiple listing service, there's two different types of properties on the new build category. So there's like a new build community, and that just means, they have this master plan, they have these plots of land that's available for you to purchase. So you're really involved from the ground up. And then they also just have newer build construction in there. And usually these properties are about 60 days out, maybe 90 days out to being finished. And so this really just depends on what your timing is of actually being able to buy. The master plan ones, usually the completion time is going to be about 12 months. And then on the pretty much almost finished ones, it's going to be around a 60 to 90 day for you to be able to close on it.
Okay. And then pros and cons, we have talked numerous times about, the process we use, the buyer-friendly contract we use to buy resale properties, which is a property that's already been built, owned, sold multiple times. New builds are different. So just start walking us through pros and cons and distinguishing between new builds and existing inventory.
Yeah. So when we do a resale property, you're going to be using the Colorado contract, which is very buyer friendly. You have your earnest money, and there's multiple dates and deadlines written into that contract for the buyer to be able to terminate and get that earnest money back. When you're buying a new build, you're going to be using a builder contract, and every builder contract's different. The builder gets to put the language in there, put the terms in there, and it's definitely heavily in favor of the builder.
Because the builder's lawyer is the one drafting this, right?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And so one of the things, too, what we always say is, we're not attorneys. So when it comes to being able to advise you on the builder contract, if you are confused, we definitely have some real estate lawyers that we can have, put you in contact with and look it over and, really be able to dig into all the legal language in there and ensure that you know what you are getting yourself into, because the big difference of this is once you start the process, your earnest money is going to go hard the very first day.
So when you say go hard, that means great, it's non-refundable.
Correct.
When we use the Colorado contract to buy and sell real estate, if you terminate the contract for the numerous reasons why you can, your earnest money gets refunded to you. Mm-hmm, but with the new build, how does that process work? Because there's the deposit, there's contract, there's earnest money. So take a step back, walk us through and define and walk us through that process.
Yeah. So, day one of everybody signing the contract, you usually have about 48 hours to deliver your deposit. And again, that's your builder deposit. So there's, every builder does it differently. There are some builders that will do their pricing as this is the base price model. And then there's just a slew of choices and upgrades that you have to make throughout the whole process that will be a additional cost. And so if you are going to do any upgrades or all of the design choices that you make as well, they usually ask for half of that money to be also deposited. And again, that's going to be going hard as well, to where if you get to the very end of the closing time and for whatever reason, if you lose your job or you can't get financing anymore, maybe the interest rate went so up more than what you initially thought, technically the builder has the right to be able to keep all of that money that you initially invested into building the home.
To clarify on there, you're saying, great, we go under contract, they have their base model. Mm-hmm. And then at some point you go in there and do your design meeting, and that's where, hey, upgrade countertops, cabinets, lighting. And if it's a $30,000 upgrade, a lot of times they want the client to put down extra 50% or $15,000 for the upgrades.
Correct.
Okay.
Or they'll like layer it out too, so, as they're installing or as they're ordering the materials, like they can also layer out the payment there for your upgrades or your choices that you've actually picked. Normally they're going to definitely ask after that design meeting, half of the money up like front. So there's definitely some like risk involved, and, it kind of feels backwards as the buyer, of giving all this money away, making it hard. It's just, you have to kind of look at it from the builder's, perspective too. The buyer could have very specific tastes that maybe isn't what the, majority of the market would respond to. So if the buyer is picking all of these specific options and for any reason the buyer backs out, well, now the builder is stuck with this asset, that in all reality probably won't be able to get the return that the initial buyer had put into it. So, you can kind of look at it from both sides. And this is a very standard process just across the country of how the building process works.
And let's talk a little bit more about that design meeting or design process, because that is something that, a lot of times it can be very stressful for people. What's that process like, and what should clients keep in mind as they go through that design process?
Yeah. So again, there's different ways that builders can go about, building their homes. And if we're talking about the base price plus options models, which is like what the bigger nationwide builders are, Richmond, K, B Homes, those kind of, larger groups, it's literally almost every single thing that you use in the house is something that they're going to ask you about. Do you want a light switch here? Do you want another outlet here? And all of these things come with a additional cost.
Very detailed.
Very, very detailed. And for our client base, that, our audience base that's listening to us, there's a whole nother layer of, kind of goggles that you have to put on when you go into that design center, because you're not the traditional buyer, and you're not. The traditional buyer, I guess, is more looking for, how is this going to make me happy? How is this going to bring me joy in my life? And I'm sure the smart ones out there are also making sure that they're going to get, if they do need to sell it, get it returned. But for our clients, they really have to go in there with the decision of, well, how much cash, initial capital, outlay do I want to put into this? What is going to get me a return when I sell? The biggest return when I sell, and also too, what's going to give me, the durability, because in all reality, we want to rent this property out too. So it's a whole nother layer on top for a investor doing a brand new build also.
And I doubt builders have like, oh, here's package A, here's package B, and here's the rental package. I doubt they have the rental package.
The rental
in there,
package
right?
would be fantastic. Yeah. So in that step of the process, make sure you bring your real estate agent with you, to be able to just be like a sounding board, because it's just like anything, like with us, working with our resale clients and our fix and list program, we always want to ensure that the capital that they're putting in, they're going to get, a $2 to $3 return. And also too, you have to think about when you're renting it, you're going to have renters, and there's renter wear and tear. Those individuals, they're not necessarily thinking about it as their house. So, if you get a marble, let's say countertop, and they're having a dinner party and you have red wine, a homeowner would know if someone spills red wine on this marble, it's stained and it's ruined forever. So as an investor building, all right, let's use durable stones to where if they do throw a rager, whenever we have to go do the tenant flip on it, the cost is going to be going down. And also too, thing to think about is picking the finishes. Let's say you're going to hold it for like a 10-year period. The styles can definitely change of, what the market is looking to, and just that 10-year period of time. So I always say, like, go with like the basics on that design, on that design meeting, focus on the kitchen, focus on the master bath, but also go with the mindset too of, when I go to resell this property, I'm going to have to put some capital into it. And it might make more sense then to do the higher end upgrades to match exactly what the market at that time is wanting. Right now, everyone's going for these, brass finishes, stuff like that. Well, 10 years from like now, it could switch back over to chrome. And now you have a completely brassed out house, or gold house whenever the market doesn't want it. And you paid an upgrade, at the very beginning for that.
To peel that onion back more, how can clients prepare for that? Because it's not like, I understand what you're saying, but like that's something it's very hard to prepare and educate yourself on.
Yeah, I think maybe just working backwards on, okay, like what's my initial like cash outlay budget? Like what do I have? Because we're also always playing a chess game in our heads as investors of, not only am I thinking about buying property 1, but you're also setting yourself up to buy property 2, 3, 4, and 5. And so just ensuring that you're staying within that budget of what you want to pay, for property 1 and really trying not to dip into maybe your savings to go into buy property 2 and then the following year. And you did a great, because you brought it back to like the bigger strategy. Just think about your budget. And it's insane sometimes with the base model plus options. And not every builder is like that. There's builders that have a set deal and that's what they just stamp out time and time. You might have a little bit of flexibility here and like there, or they'll have 3 different packages that you can pick from. And and those 2 options I just said, it's pretty easy for, I would say, an investor to be able to work through the options. On the base model plus option 1, you're making decisions about pendant lights, recessed lighting, do I want overhead lighting or a fan? It doesn't even come with that. It comes with a light switch and an outlet to where you can plug in a lamp. When you turn on the light, that switch, it'll plug on your like lamp for you. You're making decisions on materials for the cabinets, the countertops, the bathroom, the tiling. The builder's going to do minimum amount of wood flooring. They're going to ask you, do you want to expand the wood flooring, any other areas into the house? So for that design meeting, if you are going into a project like that, just bring your like agent with you, and go into it thinking you're going to spend the least amount of money.
And when people do go on the design budget, if they spend $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, does that generally get wrapped into the overall purchase price then and wrapped into the financing package? Or is that an extra $20,000 the client has to write outside of closing in addition to the normal down payment?
Every builder is different.
Okay.
Some might make you outlay the cash, out front and not bring that to your financing costs. And then there are some that will wrap that in as well.
All right. So went through, I think, some of the, I don't want to say cons, but just consideration differences. Hey, it's you're not using Colorado real estate contract, using the builder contract that their lawyer drafts for them, and you know whose favor that goes into. Your earnest money will go hard at the time of signing the contract. You're going to have longer close times from 60 days to 12 months plus. You're going to have to go through the design process on here as well. And then with the longer close time, what does that do for interest rates? Because that's something that, when you buy a resale property, great, we got our contract. 2 days later, clients are sitting out with Joe or whoever, and they get their term sheet. Great, interest rate is this, no problem. 12 months out, you're not getting an interest rate term sheet then, I don't think.
That's the biggest kind of question mark, I would say, outside of going in and picking all your options and what your total cost is going to be. The biggest question mark as well is going to be the interest rate. Usually you can lock your rate in, I would say about 60 days out. So realistically that, you're not really able to know what your true mortgage payment is going to be until about 60 days out.
Okay.
Before closing. And the other unfortunate thing though, with your interest rate lock is if you lock it in for 60 days based upon the closing date that the builders give you, there is a very good chance that builder is going to have construction issues, city permit issues, and that closing date is going to get pushed out. So when you're getting to that 60-day mark, close to what your projected date is, you really want to be making sure that your agent is reaching out to the builder, trying to get just a really good feel of the reality of being able to close then. And then that way the buyer can go back to to their lender and try and strategize on, let's look at the rates today. we don't really see anything, major happening in the market to where we're going to have this huge, spike in it. Let's just go ahead and keep waiting maybe until day 45 just to kind of check back in with your lender, see where the rates are at again, check back with the builder again, see where their completion time is, and then start to really try and lock in that rate. Because I would say the ones that are from like the ground up or close to completion right now, especially with material issues, our city is so backed up with getting permits. Majority of all of my closing dates are getting pushed. And there's, I say half of them my clients are getting hit with a rate lock extension as well to be able to hold that interest rate. It's a charge every single week, additionally to hold it. So we just want to try and minimize that as much as possible and just ensuring you're using your agent and your lender to really strategize you and set you up.
So this is very helpful so far. So what are some of like the pros with the new builds? Because off top of the head, an obvious one is there's usually not a bidding war. Mm-hmm. Great, a resale property list on Thursday morning, and then by Sunday they've got 3, 5, 10 offers. New builds is a different process, right? So how is that compared to resale properties?
Yeah, so competition that we're seeing is a lot less. I would say whenever we started kind of digging into buying newer build properties for our client, that was during COVID. And there just happened to be a lot of brand new build properties that were near completion and available. And so there really wasn't a lot of bidding up on the property price. It was pretty straightforward. They would put it on the MLS at that price. They would take the very first offer that came in. Now, unfortunately, what's happening is, since again, such low inventory in our market, and the cost of materials are going up so high, what's happening now is we have we have to be on a wait list. Like anytime that we go to a new build community, majority of the time, all of the lots are already spoken for, and the builder's going to release them in segments of time. They're going to, release one plot or one set of buildings out. There'll be the wait list, and then the sales agent will call, just one down the road, one after the next, just saying, hey, it's opened up. This is the price that we're at now. Do you guys want it or not? Yes or no? And they'll just work their way down that list until they run out of plots. So the competition, I would say, is definitely a little bit higher than when we had this conversation at the beginning. But the pro of it is you're not going into this bidding war against 10 other buyers to try and buy it. But again, the cost of materials, as they release sections of their development, they are slowly increasing the price of the base price out there.
And let's talk about that for a minute, because that is an investing strategy we've talked about with clients and on previous podcasts about whether you're buying in the a new build townhome, like a redevelopment in Arvada or Wheat Ridge, or you go out there and buy in a big community out by the airport or up north or anything. It's about buying like an early, one of the first phases or one of the early new builds. Mm-hmm. What are the advantages of that to homeowners or investors? Hey, if I buy early on, what's that look like?
Yeah, I think you've had somebody on the podcast that this was a strategy that they actually used.
Yep.
So if you're one of the first people to buy into the property, they kind of, you're able to be gifted a lot of appreciation as the project is, being close to finish. I think they're also kind of gifting you that because you're going to be one of the first, homes built in there. There could be a master plan of 100 plus homes. You're going to be making friends with all the construction crews because you're going to see a lot of them.
That's a way to put it.
Hey, if you can find contractors and, get a good list of contractors, they're always looking for some additional work, the contractors out there. But no, it is a great way. If you get in early, you're going to see quite a bit of appreciation in a very quick period of time by the time the community's finished. Because again, appreciation, cost of materials, our business is very much a supply and demand driven, also. So, as the community gets finished out, there's less and less lots, and they're just able to take advantage of that. So you could, let's just say, even easy numbers, you bought in first lot, at 500,000. By the time the community is finished, there's a really good chance you're going to see those same houses going for $50,000, $60,000 more.
And we'll talk about it because, at the time of this recording, I think about a month to 6 weeks ago, we'd recorded a podcast with a client who bought a new build in Arvada.
Mm-hmm.
There's a great layout where, it's a new build townhome where on the first floor, it was basically a great lock-off unit to do some Airbnb.
Mm-hmm.
And he's one of the first buyers in this community. And he closed on that. When did he close on that?
That was in January.
So he closed in January. We're recording this, right before Memorial Day in May.
Mm-hmm.
What's happened in that community and other townhomes in there over the last 4 or 5 months?
So I think he purchased that one at $560,000, and the builders are still waiting to release the pricing for the same layout for phase 2. But, I've been in close contact with them, and, they're realistically going to be releasing the base price models for like $610,000, I want to say. And when I say base price for these guys, this is a builder that there's really no upgrades. It's very, very few. You're really getting a high-end finish right off the bat. So, from $560,000 to $610,000 and, like a 5-month period.
That's a 10% bump right there.
Yeah,
over 5 months.
Yeah, and I think we chatted about this earlier. It's a mix of things. A mix of just appreciation, but also just the cost of materials is what we're seeing right now is really causing just the builders massive amount of headaches right now of being able to project. All right, when we actually start doing the framing, the wood's the biggest issue. What's the actual cost going to be? Because these guys are seeing increases every single week. A price increase. So yeah, that's a really interesting strategy. You can, hold that property for a little bit, afterwards, let it appreciate, and, you're going to be able to walk away with a good amount of money as well.
So when it comes to then, because the majority of new builds we bought have been for house hackers and nomaders.
Mm-hmm.
People move in there and after a year or two, they move out, convert to rental. And the reason, one of the reasons new builds are becoming more attractive is, hey, in that $500,000 to $600,000 price point, that's pretty much about the same for a 1960s build house in the suburbs that has 50 years of wear and tear and deferred maintenance. So when it comes to rental rates, what are you seeing in terms of like rental rates for these new builds? Like, is it higher demand? Is it higher rents? Is it both, or does it matter?
Yeah, so we are definitely seeing a premium in rents for a newer build construction. And where a majority of these newer build townhome communities are going up are actually in like areas that like young professionals want to actually live, like Arvada, south of Colfax, to where you're able to have the walkability that's going to easily attract renters. And, when you're kind of comparing their rental market, apartment versus townhouse versus a single family home, in all reality, there's no way that they're going to be able to find a single family home most of the time as updated as this. You would be able to find an apartment with the same sort of finishes as a brand new townhome to rent, but there is a premium to not have to live in an apartment and live in a townhouse that's essentially located and has all of the amenities that renters are willing to pay the additional premium for. So vacancy goes down, and then the rent rates are going to go up too.
And I think most of our viewers and listeners, they have walked or lived in properties, and these newer builds, they've got the 9-foot ceilings,
yep.
the great open concept kitchens, the recessed lighting. And a lot of these, new builds are, 3-bedroom, 3.5 bath, where every bedroom has an ensuite bath, and
yep.
they have a big walk-in closet. It's just, the layout and what people want, it's there. Like the functionality is great.
Yeah. And you touched on the layout too. There's definitely some new build townhomes out there that you just kind of scratch your head on. They miss the mark a little bit. But the ones that our clients are seeing a lot of success in and they gravitate towards is, the 3-bedroom with having the ensuite bathroom. And again, you're going to be able to get higher rent premiums by having 3 young professionals in there and not having to share a bathroom or have that additional privacy as well. So yeah, these newer builds are providing that that premium layout also.
And then let's talk about just wear and tear and putting away reserves and maintenance, because hey, these are brand new properties, so therefore it is a brand new roof, brand new water heater, brand new furnace, and they should have a longer lifespan. A lot of times people buy a resale property and hey, the roof, the furnace, they already have days to weeks to years of already life taken away from there. So a lot of times with new builds, you can do a reduced like reserve maintenance reserves first couple of years. But what type of builder's warranty does it come with? Because there's a blue tape walkthrough, there's a builder's warranty. What are those and why is it advantageous?
Yeah, so with the brand new build, it's kind of like a set standard of, what the builder offers. So you'll have like a typical like one year warranty, which literally like your whole house is covered for that. Any appliance issues, anything that can go wrong, pretty much. The builder is required to come and fix that. So as you're getting close to, owning the property for 12 months, definitely make sure that you have your list and you're reaching out to them to get, anything major like fixed for it. But if you really think about, all of your CapEx items in the property, majority of the things that maybe the hot water heater, but even now we're seeing most of the builders going with the tankless hot water heaters.
Oh, really?
Yeah, all of those pretty much come that 10-year lifespan. All of those major costs are going to probably outlive you even owning the property. If you're going to hold a property for 10 years, you might have some little things like pop up here and like there, but it definitely drastically does reduce like what your maintenance reserves is going to be. I know normally how we write it, I think we write our brand new bills at like 5% and, versus at like at 8%, what we would do for a resale property. And then there's also, the structure, and that the structure is also covered usually up to like 6 years on the property as well. So if anything kind of starts sliding or moving around, that will be covered, by the builder warranty also. So that's one of the best benefits of buying a brand new build is just you can just kind of set it, forget about it. That first year, all your major appliances are all under that 1 year warranty. Little things, throughout the property. Some builders will even do, so talking about the blue tape walkthrough, it's kind of one of the other pros of buying a brand new build home is we'll do our regular inspection. I always recommend, doing a third party inspection throughout the process. One level of certainty, is that the city has to approve every stage of building the brand new construction home. So at least, you have professionals looking at that. But at the end of the day, their GC, their superintendent, they all work for the builder. So it might pass code, it might pass inspection, but it's not what you thought you were going to get. So having that third party inspector before closing is important to walk through. We'll have, those items to ask the builder to fix, but we're also going to go do a blue tape walkthrough, which is where you get to literally bring some blue tape with you and walk through the whole property and
like the blue painter's tape.
Yeah, the blue painter's tape, and point out any like cosmetic-y defects to the property. Because at the end of the day, they're supposed to deliver a brand new product to you versus a resale, especially in this kind of market right now, anything on the cosmetic side, if you ask a seller for, you're pretty much laughed at. But it's great, to be able to go into a brand new build. If you see paint on the floors, scuffs on the walls, maybe the bathroom, area wasn't sealed the way you want it to be sealed. One of the common things I see is kitchen cabinet doors are not necessarily like installed level, you're able to point at all those kind of things out. So that's definitely something that's different, buying a brand new build as well.
Something that popped in my mind while you're talking about just all the, the reduced CapEx for the first 7-10 years of the property is, our friend James Orr up in Fort Collins, the last, 4 or 5 years, he, for his investor clients and nomad clients, they've been buying a lot of the new build communities. And he's saying for a lot of his clients, what their strategy is that they'll go in there and, buy a house. And then, after that 7-10 year mark, they actually plan on exiting out. And it's, it's two reasons. One is to optimize their equity in the property, but also like, hey, that's when things start breaking, the furnaces, the roofs, all stuff. Like, hey, they're going to buy a brand new property. have hopefully, knock on wood, very, very low maintenance and no big ticket items. And then before things start going bad, sell out and then move on to something else, which is another plays in the exit strategy we talk about a lot of times here in Denver, which is, hey, buy a property, ride the wave of growth, and then in 5, 7, 10 years when it makes sense to look at refinancing or a lot of times selling and trading up. And that's a great thing about the new builds is you should really, really minimize cash in the property for big ticket items in those first, handful of years.
Yeah, no, that's really, really smart for sure.
So I'm looking at my notes here, Lauren. I think I have asked you all the questions.
Yeah.
Anything else on your list over there that we want to talk about?
I think two other things would love to be able to bring up, and I forgot to kind of talk about this as a pro. Depending upon the builder, the big nationwide builders are not nearly as flexible, but let's talk about Anthony's development. Sometimes they are willing to make adjustments to the build out to accommodate maybe an Airbnb rental a little bit better. This will all be done after closing time because the builder has to complete the design that whatever they were given a permit for, the city will come through and make sure that everything matches. But you can have that conversations with them during the process as well as I would love to put a wall here, an additional door to make this a complete private lock off. You guys can talk about plumbing, if you wanted to add in additional kitchenette, so depending upon, usually it's the smaller builders are more flexible on doing stuff like that. But they already have the materials, if you're early on as well, their crews are already there. It's something that they can just kind of pick up on the side, and it's a customer service thing, from the builder also, but they can be flexible sometimes of, working with an investor and trying to make the unit, work to the best for them and produce the most amount of money. The last thing I just want to kind of touch on, I think almost every podcast I've been on with you, somehow the Bank of America program kind of jumps into this. But there is a pretty amazing Bank of America grant program to where they will give you $10,000 towards your down payment. And then they'll also give you $7,500 that will go towards the closing cost. It is dependent upon how much income you make. I think it's $150 or less you have to make, which is majority of people, I would say. And then you have to have a good credit score. And then it is location driven. So it's kind of on a sliding scale. The more money you make, you're going to have to buy in a low income track area. If you make a moderate amount of money, around $100,000, they're going to want you to either buy in a low income track or a moderate income track area. But these newer build communities that we're seeing are being built in a lot of these low to moderate income track areas. So if you look, I forget how much Anthony ended up putting in, and he bought a brand new townhome for $560 with that $17,000 towards it. The interest rate he locked in was at 2.5 with no property mortgage insurance, to where it was, the property was more than what he wanted to spend, but the cash outlay for him ended up being the exact same that he was willing to initially do. So if anybody is interested in learning about that program, it's a very interesting program, and we've been seeing it working really, really well for these particular projects. And
you mentioned there, with the Airbnb stuff, and that's something that's been really interesting this last year as we've gotten more into new builds, is just we're seeing a trend of more builders. And it's the local smaller builders where they are building things with, a mother-in-law suite or Airbnb suite. I mean, we found a handful of complexes around town where they have the build out where, hey, you can Airbnb this or you can medium-term rental it. And it's really cool. Yep. So, listeners out there, if you guys have questions about this, obviously Lauren's on top of this, and also internally as well, Lauren, our other team members as well, we all are out there looking at properties. We all share information. We have a pretty good spreadsheet we keep for, hey, what's going on? So as we're able to aggregate our combined experience and just that day-to-day knowledge of conversations and driving around town and phone calls and website visits, and aggregate the data in a spreadsheet to help people find, properties in the right location that meet their numbers, that maybe work out sometimes for various lending programs that have sometimes also have a mother-in-law suite in there. So we are really trying to carve out some great knowledge base and extra value we can provide to clients. If you have questions, please reach out to me, reach out to Lauren. Obviously, you can tell she's very knowledgeable on this topic. Lauren, thanks so much. This is great. I learned a few more things today.
Wonderful. Thank you.
All right. If you guys have any questions, please call us, hit the website up, reach out to us. We love talking about this. We'll help you figure out if this is a right next step for your strategy. But the punchline is that new builds, are they worth looking at? It's a big YES. They absolutely are in the current market conditions with all the other stuff that Lauren talked about. So thank you.